All right. I think all is well. So as we were saying, um, what a perfect opportunity to practice coming to our center uh, and stress management.
Okay.
So, so you have a presentation you'd like to do. We don't have the slides, but you're going to do a presentation, right? And then uh,
Yes.
if people have questions, they can type them in the chat, or we can chat afterwards. You can raise your hand, and I'll unmute you, and we'll just see how this goes. We'll create it together. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Judy. Uh, because I don't have the slides, I will make them available as a handout if people want.
perfect.
So
You.
now there is a handout that is for everyone. If you just email me at Roxanne@roxannelouise.com. All right. So now there are some key points that we're going to start with. And the first is that everything is consciousness. Consciousness creates reality according to the latest in quantum physics. And because everything is created of consciousness, we have the ability by changing our consciousness to change reality. And on some level, we already know that our thoughts and our emotions do definitely impact not only how we're feeling, but then how we act or we don't act. Okay, so stress is, I'm sorry, everything is consciousness, and everything that is has consciousness, whether it's animals and rocks and trees, people, everything has consciousness, and all consciousness is connected, which is why my thoughts and emotions right now, the humor of what has happened, uh, is rippling out into the pond. And by laughing at it, I help to diffuse it. The Also, everything affects everything. Part of regaining your center is not just dealing with your thoughts and emotions, but it's also addressing your body, because if you take good care of your body, it affects your ability to handle stress. And if you don't take any responsibility or sufficient action to reduce stress, it affects your body, because illness can be considered a balanced energy check. What stress is not just mental and emotional things, which is what we normally think of, but it's anything that drains your life force, anything that consumes more energy than it gives you. So while we know food gives us energy, if the food is difficult to digest, if there are toxins in that food, it becomes a stressor. And we know exercise is good, but too much or exercise drains us of energy if we don't have recovery time, if we overdo it. So there is anything that drains your life force or consumes more energy than it brings in is a stressor and has to be addressed. Now, the any kind of weakness that you have, whether it's a physical energy or stuck energy from emotions that were never resolved, or vulnerability or wound in any way, can bring down the rest of the system. But enhancing the well-being of any area has a positive effect on the whole. Now, we know that there's something as a 100th monkey effect, where if enough monkeys learn to do something, that it's passed on to the whole species. There is a critical mass that occurs when a group of any kind have a focused thought. And if that focused thought is also energized with emotion, it has a multiplying effect. every person is important. The thoughts and emotions and of each individual affects the whole. And it's our responsibility. If we don't like what's going on out there, then the first thing we have to start with is with ourselves. Now, the problems that occur are that when you are you going to see my, you're going to say hello? You say hello? This is Callie. When a person is bombarded by excess stress, they are so busy dealing with crises that they don't have time to deal with everything behind what's going on. And then when the problem is sorted out, they have a reluctance to go back and deal some more with it. For example, let's say someone dies and you have to take care of the estate, and that means not only the legal matters, but the hard physical problems of getting rid of someone's possessions, the funeral, the announcements, that you're not really having time to process your emotions, you're grieving how you feel. And so you just get on with life, and what is not done gets shoved in the background. But what gets shoved in the background is still there to create problems for yourself. Anyway, time moves on, and the problems unresolved get shoved in the recess of your file cabinet. And then something else happens because your unresolved issue or pain or trauma is an attractor to some event that's similar. When 9/11 happened, one of the people I knew was on the windows of the world, top of the World Trade Center, and he was one of the people that died at that time. He had just come back from vacation the very first day after 2 weeks. Couldn't he have waited another day? And he, but his death brought up the last time I saw him, because we had a mutual friend who also died. And it brought up Rodney's death. Well, Rodney's death brought up my father's death. And my father's death brought up the death of all the other people that I loved and cared about. And so when you have a problem, it calls up other things that resonate with it. So you're not just dealing with what happened now, you're dealing with a long history of things that are related. There is a way of addressing these wounds without having to go through the pain. And that is something that I teach on healing through time. Hypnosis has always been able to do regression therapy. However, that requires dialogue. However, I had two mentors that were giants. Both are dead now. One was A.L. Ward, and another was Art Winkler. And they both dealt with unconscious healing modalities. So, for example, Art Winkler would say, okay, he's going to make the arm stiff and rigid, and it's not going to be able to move, and it will come down only as quickly as the unconscious mind can find a solution for the problem of. Or your arm is going to lift and rise higher and higher to your face, but it will not touch your forehead until you found a solution to that problem. So that was Winkler's. And A.L. Ward said, unconscious mind, go back to the first event having to do with the problem the client wants to solve today. He wouldn't even say what the problem is, but I do. And then he said, find the negative belief or judgment that's related to that event and make a healthier, more constructive choice. Now, I'd like you to understand that stress is not just mental and emotional, as I said, I said that before. It's anything that drains your life force, but mostly the things that are mental and emotional factors are unconscious. They're not remembered. You just don't know them. They could happen in the womb. They could happen in infancy or conception or pre-birth. In their past lives. They can even be ancestral. There have been studies with mice and with uh, children of Holocaust survivors, and both were able to demonstrate that the fears and the tragedies that occurred to our ancestors are passed on to the generation through the DNA. And so by working with the unconscious to heal or resolve the issue, we can deal with what is impossible to verify. There's no way, even in hypnosis, that you can find out what was going on with your grandparents. Look, for example, when I was born, World War II was going on. And so how many people of my generation, their parents, their fathers, who are off fighting war, and the mother is there while carrying you, who's worried about, is the father going to come home alive? Will he be in one piece or missing a leg? Or perhaps it was somebody there was a young couple and they really didn't have their finances together and they're worried if they can even support you. In some cases, like mine, I was aware my mother wanted a boy. They already had a girl in the family and they wanted one of each sex. So I knew in the womb that I wasn't going to be my mother's preference. And so my sister did all the girl jobs and I did all the outside gardening and yard work, the boy jobs. And they even unfortunately called me butch too, which is not smart. Anyway, the going back to more of the key points.
Roxanne, we lost your camera.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Now, the emotions don't come just from what happens. They come from what you think or say about the things that happen. And in that, there is a choice. And so you can say anger is a choice. It's a chosen response to what is happening. So something happens and you're going to say, this is awful, this shouldn't be happening, or it's just my luck, like today. So the first something happens, you make a judgment about it. That creates the resulting emotion. Now, with that also comes attitude, and then actions or inactions come at the very end. So your inclination to act or not act and how to act comes out of that judgment and your resulting emotion. Now, your judgments can be wrong. I'll give you an example, and my apologies to those who have heard some of my examples before. Johnny loves his daddy very much, and he has made him a special picture. And he's just waiting for his daddy to come home. He doesn't know, however, that his daddy, who dearly loves him, has just been told by the boss that things aren't going well in business and some people are going to have to be let go. And so he comes home very worried about, is he going to be able to provide for his family? As soon as he walks in the door, Johnny runs out and says, Daddy, Daddy, I made this picture for you. I want you to see it. And Daddy says, not now, Johnny. Daddy has had a rough day. He just wants to be left alone for a minute. But Daddy, Daddy, I made you this picture. Not now, Johnny. But Daddy, not now, Johnny. So Johnny runs into his room thinking Daddy doesn't love him. Is that true? No. Johnny did not have all the information. So when we make judgments, they are frequently wrong because we don't have all the information. Or the information we have is false. Or the information we have is through someone's agenda to influence us in a particular direction. Or we have a preconceived bias because of other things that have happened to us, or because of our programming from childhood. For example, can't trust anyone. You have to work hard all the time to get ahead. No one is going to give you any support or help. I mean, we have all these things that we hear in growing up, and some of it is cultural. So if some groups who have had a rough time in recent history might think they're out to get you, or out to get us, and that's a filter that we picked up. There are other ways that your judgment can be based, can be wrong, is that of what we call normalcy bias. Normalcy bias is a cognitive bias that causes people to minimize threat warnings, and consequently, they don't respond. Even when they get good information, they will tend not to pay attention to it. Or they can actually go into analysis paralysis or the ostrich effect, or a negative panic, which according to first responders is overreaction or worst case scenario. And these are the people that are looking for any threat out there to over prepare. And that takes a tremendous amount of energy. So these are things that affect our judgment. Now, when people get really upset and they respond by lashing out with anger or hatred, when they throw things, burn things down, it just turns people off, and they're not likely to get listened to, or they're to resolve the underlying issues. You know that if you start shouting at somebody and screaming at them, they're going to walk away. They're not going to listen to you. They'll tune you out. So in order to communicate what's bothering you, you have to get to the essence of what it is and be able to communicate it in a way without emotion, without blaming, just sticking to the facts of behavior so that they'll listen to you. And if they're yelling and screaming at you, you can have a pause or let's take some time to cool down, and let's come back later at such and such a time to discuss this, and tell me specifically what behavior is bothering you and what you would like instead, and learning to listen to one another. A lot of what's going on right now is that people are not listening to one another, and they're not coming together in a way to get to what we all want, living in safety, feeling that we're valued and important, that our views are being considered. Now, if we notice that we are getting really angry, we want to identify what specifically is it that we want, and what specifically are we getting that we don't want. So what are we getting that we don't want, and what is it that we want we're not getting? That's basically of things of anger. And the moment we start to identify that, we can start working on creating what it is that we do want. What is it that we can do to move towards that which we want, instead of just focusing on what we don't want? I was listening to a podcast recently when they said that if you can focus with energy and conviction on creating something better, the problems, the lesser solution or option to people will fall away. So if to focus on coming from protecting who and what you love, and to bring about something beautiful that both you want for yourself and for others, for generations to come. You may still follow a path of non-compliance, such as Gandhi did, demonstrated. Non-compliance is a very powerful, just as action is very powerful. So coming from a place of protecting who and what you love, so protecting our children, protecting our loved ones, protecting what is good about our Constitution, our Bill of Rights in America, protecting our core values. Now, the one thing that happens if you get upset and you ask yourself, well, why am I upset? And then what is underneath what is making me upset? What's the issue? For example, I recently had a situation where I paid for a very expensive seminar. And I noticed when my statement that they overcharged me. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to call them up. And I call them up and I get their hours that they're open to answer the phone. But I was calling then. So I thought, well, maybe they're busy. I'm going to call again. And I got the same thing. And I call again and the same thing. Everyone can't take your call right now. So then I leave a message, and the next day happens, and the next day happens, and I send an email, and I send another email, and there's no response. And so I got angry. Why did I get angry? Because I felt invisible. I felt like, hey, I paid for this. You overcharged me. It's not my mistake, and I can't seem to find anyone to rectify it. So that is one thing that feeling invisible. And so you can ask yourself, all right, if that's your issue, have I ever felt that way before? I felt no one was listening to me or paying attention and willing to make corrections when they're clearly wrong. So it can lead us down the rabbit hole of clearing out our debris. So one of the important ways of regaining your center is to start a self-examination and to ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? And what is underneath that feeling? Have I ever had this problem before? If so, who with? And anyone else? And you go through the things that you consciously know. But as I said, since I work largely with the unconscious mind, I have a way of dealing with things that could be way, way down in the past. I recommend that anyone learn dowsing because it is a tremendous help. And I have a whole book called Therapeutic Dowsing, Telepathic Healing, that have charts that you can check on what the issue is, who it's with, how many lifetimes are involved with this particular issue that's unresolved. And dowsing also allows you to calibrate how much energy is stuck on it, and then what kind of progress you're making as you're working on it. So it's extremely helpful. So my book is all focused on how to deal with mental and emotional issues if you're interested. All right, now it's really important to have let me go back to something that Greg Braden said recently on how to spiritually handle challenging times. He said, the idea of winning or losing any battle keeps us stuck in battle. And the answer is instead to transcend and to come at it from your highest and best self. What is really crucial, in my opinion, to regaining a sense of center and handling severe stress is being able to connect to source. And what is source? Source, in my opinion, some people may call God, but I consider it even larger than that. I consider it the consciousness that created all that is and includes all that is. And in connecting to this energy that created you and everything else, if you are created by source and of source energy, and that was all there is, energy, then you can say, well, then I must be a chip off the old block, and therefore divine myself with the power to create. And learning how to increasingly work on rising to that higher vibration, of connecting to source and remembering that who we are as if you're going to listen to the people from near-death experiences, they talk about being faced with this incredible light that loves with such a force of unconditional love that they've never experienced before. If you hold an intention to connect to the source of all that is, that loves you completely, and that you hold that intention, and then you allow that light from source to shine through you as clearly and as naturally as possible without the facades that we put on in our daily life. The facade of professional person, facade of the role you're playing at that moment with that person. And Braden also says that in protecting what makes us uniquely human. So humans, I'm hearing from people who talk to alien species, say that we're so admired because of how resilient we are, how we keep going, the Energizer Bunny, and our imagination, our innovation, our creativity, and joyful self-expression. What's the saying? That the best revenge is success. And so if we become, in the face of everything going on, more loving, more compassionate, more creative, more joyful. There was a story about a man who had been chased to the edge of a cliff by a lion. And the man gets to the edge of the cliff and sees that there's a problem. And so he tries to climb down the edge of the cliff, holding on to a sapling. And as the sapling is indicating that it's not strong enough to hold the weight of this man, he sees a strawberry that's ripe. And so in the last moment, he decides to pick that strawberry. in the face of our problems, there's probably something you can find that is beautiful, that you're grateful for. Running water, a roof over your head, clothes to put on, shoes to put on, an animal. You can even be grateful for your enemies for being honest with you, for pointing out what needs to heal within yourself. There's something, the ability to breathe, to see, to walk. And as we start being grateful, gratitude helps to remove fear. And by removing fear, we can take a deep breath and assess what can we do? And of the many things that may concern us, what is ours to do? Now, when I was 3 years old, as a little tot, I was sitting outside at night, just when it was dark, and I was looking up at the stars, and I knew I came from there. I don't know how I thought that, but I felt that's where I came from. And when I was 4 years old, as you may have seen in the blurb, I became the Lucy in the block, giving out the free advice on telling my playmates how they can deal with their other playmates. In other words, they were coming to me for advice on how to deal with somebody else who was being mean to them. And my mother overheard me say to Cindy, who lived next door, when she was complaining, and I said, "You're master of yourself." Now, that's not a saying that normal 4-year-olds give, but it was a clue about what my life was going to be working on. So I might know that it's one thing to cognitively know something, and it's quite another to practically represent it in everyday life. And so, okay, so if we are masters of ourselves, the question is, how do we become that? How do we demonstrate that? How do we come from that place of calm inner center where we're thinking clearly and we can make wise decisions? How can we come from that place where we are at our best? Now, one thing you can do, because our responses are so habitual, if you have a same sort of situation happening over and over again, you can develop very habitual ways of dealing with it. For some people, it's not dealing with it, it's walking out of the room or just getting drunk or taking drugs or whatever. So we have habits in how we respond. And the thing is then to change the pattern. One pattern can be, instead of responding in anger when somebody's lashing at you, make an excuse and leave the room. Now, hold that thought, I have to go to the bathroom, or have to get off the phone, something's burning on the stove, called a pattern interrupt. So in NLP, they've identified that when this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and that happens. And by interrupting anything along that train line, it gives a different emotional response. I'll give you an example. I had a client and she had a number of health issues. So she wakes up in the morning and her first thought is, I feel sick. Well, the next thought, because thoughts connect to other thoughts, which go down the line until they create the emotion. Her next thought is, well, if I'm sick, I can't go to work. Well, if I'm sick and I can't go to work, then the next thought is, I'm going to lose my job. So if I'm sick, I can't go to work, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my apartment. If I'm sick and I can't go to work and I lose my job and I lose my apartment, I'm going to lose custody of my son. Well, guess what the next thought is? Her next thought was that I might as well kill myself. So at any point, a person can break that chain where one thought connects to another. So let's go back to the beginning. If I'm sick, I can't work at what I normally do. So what is it that I can do from the comfort of my own bed? Oh, I can do some telephone calls. Oh, I could do some, I used to be an editor. Maybe I could get some private clients and I could work on their manuscript from the bed as I have energy. She would have been another place because she's changing from the problem to solution. She's looking at her, what are my options? What other things can I do to get the money I need when I can't predict when I'm going to feel okay to work? The moment you switch from focusing on problem to focusing on solution, now instead of having your energy drained, you're bringing energy in because your wheels are working. And that is very generating. Now, one problem that a person gets really upset is that they feel they don't have any options. Not feeling you don't have options, probably you really haven't tested that really well. And you might want to talk to some people to help you brainstorm what other options you might have. There was a saying in World War II to the people that were being marched from one camp to another. They would frequently be given the choice by the guards. Do you want to take this road or that road? And the people thought, oh, I've got to pick the right one that'll get me into safety. But both choices that were presented to them were both going to take them to the concentration camp and the gas chambers. So the saying was, when you're given just two choices, find a third choice. So this is where going within for guidance. And one of the things I'm going to be teaching, and in fact, on the slide, there was a date of teaching for NorCal Dowsers, which is based out of Reading. Hold on, I'll give you the date. It's not here. It'll be in a handout. If you write me for the handout, I'll send you the date. But it's coming up this month, and it's on the infinite intelligence process. So here's the wording for part of that program. There's a part of me that knows blank, and that part is blank. The moment you say there's a part of me that knows, you're telling your unconscious mind, go into the files, go into the archives, get me the information or the help I need. And when you repeat that without having to pressure yourself to know the answer consciously, your unconscious mind will get you in the right place at the right time to get that information. It could be hearing someone say something on the radio, bumping into somebody who has answers or information for you. Just happening to see an article or a video on YouTube, all kinds of, or having a dream, or just instantly a thought pops into your mind. There's a part of me that knows, and that part is. Now, let me talk about this for a moment. I'm not the only one that starts the phrase with there's a part of me that knows. And I won't go into it, but the fact is, it's not enough to know that you have a problem and what the problem is. You have to do something with it. So a lot of people go to a psychiatrist and they can go to every week for years and they know exactly why they're screwed up, but they're still screwed up. So it's not enough to know. You have to do something with that knowing. So there's a part of me that knows the wisest course of action regarding the issue I have with. And that part is making that knowledge known to me in a way in which I can readily act on in a positive way, or you finish the sentence. So this, people are going to learn that in that seminar at North Cal Dowsers. I have a whole book called Accessing More, Tapping into the Wisdom Within. And that is part of that process. Another is to create I've created a dowsing program, but it can be done in meditation as well. In fact, a lot of things that are done in dowsing can be done just with either muscle testing or hypnosis or self-hypnosis or meditation. I created a rather lengthy stress management program that it runs with trigger words. The trigger words are process, go. So from the perspective of my high self, process everything I heard today on the internet, keeping what's good and useful and keep dumping the rest, go. So the final thing of go says, okay, run the whole program, which as I said is a couple pages or more long. And before I go to bed, I say, there's a part of me that knows the fears and worries I have that are about things that will never happen. And that part is releasing them now so that I can have a good night's sleep. So there are a whole lot of things we worry about that will never happen. And then there are some that may happen. And so I say, there's a part of me that knows what worries I have could possibly happen and is switching from fear to awareness and prudent preparation. And so that, again, allows me just to handle it in a way that like anything else, you don't have to be afraid of driving a car. You just have to have your eyes open to the other cars around you. You don't have to be afraid about crossing the street. You have to just look both ways. So we can have awareness take over instead of fear. Now, the other thing, or the thing about prudent preparation, is that could include just stocking up your basement with some extra food and water. Since things can happen in New Jersey, I'm from New Jersey. So just something, the epicenter was an hour away from where I used to live. It was actually the very location where my cousin used to live. But knowing that there are things like hurricanes and power outages and snowstorms and tree downs and all this stuff, we don't have to live in fear. We just need to do the best we can to be somewhat prepared for whatever's going to happen, and then know who to call for the things we can't handle ourselves. So we do what we can, we let go of the rest. Now, getting to another thing you can do. One of the things I developed probably 30 years ago, I've been teaching at national conferences since 1991 and teaching all my clients right from the beginning in 89, is what I call a walking mantra. And I'm pleased to see Joe Dispenza is teaching a walking meditation. But that's recent. And by the way, he's from New Jersey too. Anyway, a walking mantra means that you will do some form of exercise. It could be laps in the pool. It can be riding a bike or a treadmill. It's keeping your pace absolutely steady. And as you get step, 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 and you match those rhythmical steps to a rhythmical affirmation. So Sooner or later, I figure it out. Sooner or later, I figure it out. Sooner or later, I figure it out. Or I learn and move on. That's for frustration. I learn and move on. Uh, I find a way that works for me. I find a way that works for me every day, and every way I get better and better. Yes. So walking mantras are something that are very simple and easy to do. And within 5 minutes, you hypnotize yourself. Now, another thing that really helps is to use questions to switch from looking at a problem as a troublemaker to looking to see how it can bless you. How can I turn this into a blessing for myself or somebody else? Now, I watched a video about a young boy who was abducted, and they had tremendous help in looking for this boy. Nobody could find him, but they kept on going. Now, eventually, 21 years later, they found the person. They arrested somebody who admitted to killing the boy, and they found the body. But what happened in this tragedy is that the family of that boy set up a whole network to help other people who had missing family members, especially children, and to protect children. They found resources. They did so much social service work that a huge blessing came out for hundreds of people because how they responded to that tragedy. If I have a problem, well, my history is this. Universe will send me a problem. Some of my problems are just being dumb and stupid, but or not having experience, or being blissfully naive. But many times a problem I get is universe is giving me the problem that when I solve it is going to help a lot of other people. So as soon as I solve the problem, the phone picks up of people who want exactly what I just learned and can help them. So that's been my problem. And so there's a fellow by the name of Desai, Desai, who said not to think that when you have a problem that you're being punished by the universe, that the problem you've been given is actually to help somebody else. So if you ask, well, how can I use this to help somebody else? One woman who was hopelessly disorganized created a system for herself that became the first daily planner, a whole way of organizing your time and your finances and making sense of things. There are a lot of chiropractors that became chiropractors because they themselves had a bad back. And I recently was listening to something on Gaia where this gentleman was saying that your biggest pain can become your life's work. It becomes the very way that you go on you commit yourself to finding answers that then bless humanity. Think of all the inventions that were created out of a problem for someone they love. A wheelchair, crutches, all kinds of problems. How can I use this to turn it into a blessing? Now, here's another way you can use a question to change how you look at a problem. And this comes from James Rouse, an urban planner. James Rouse created a whole town of Columbia, Maryland. And this town was set up so people would want to live there, eat in restaurants. They'd have their schools, they'd have medical facilities, they'd have shopping centers. It was a balanced community. And he's designed South Street Seaport in Manhattan, but yeah, Lower Manhattan. And he did Haymarket Square in Boston, and the Seaport in Philadelphia. And in these urban areas that he worked on, they were when he got them, severely blighted. So they needed to be razed. In other words, destroyed, torn down, and start again. And when he was considering a project, he would talk to people and he would tell them about what his ideas were. And they'd say, "Oh, James, that is really a mistake. You have all these problems, the red tape. I mean, you have this and this and this to solve." And he'd come back with one question. And here's the question, and maybe you'd like to write it down. If it could work, how would it work? If it could work, how would it work? And in asking that question, again, it stimulates creativity. And in working on creativity, suddenly you're energized. You have turned a problem into an interesting puzzle, an adventure, a challenge that excites you. Now, I personally would never take a challenge of climbing some tall mountain. I mean, for me, that's dumb and stupid. But there are people that really get excited about a big challenge. And if you have a big problem, why not turn it into a big challenge? Because otherwise, you still have the big problem. So here are some other questions. What can I learn from this? How can I grow, get better because of this? What can I learn here that can help somebody else? Now, I suggest that when you have a problem that you know you have to deal with, that you make a decision. It's a decision. It's not an if or and. It's a decision that you are going to turn your problem or issue or situation or condition in some way that's going to work for you. So I have a 68-acre farm in Central Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and because it's a big place, I need help. And getting help, and hello, Valentina, has been a problem. There's workers frequently think that they know better than you how to deal with something, and maybe they're right. But nonetheless, I like things to go the way I've asked them to do that. And when I tell them how I want it done or what I want done, and they do something else, there's a conflict. And so I ask myself, how can I learn to be a better communicator? It's one of the questions. How can I express what I want in a way they can understand me? There's a number of language patterns that you can learn that help to deal with confrontation. So let's say, for example, you're upset because of some situation with another person. And as I said, you have to stick to behavior and not point judgment. So here's the language pattern. When you do X, I feel, because you're taking responsibility for your own feelings. You're not saying you made me feel. When you X, you do such and such. I feel this way. I would like you to do such and such. Can you agree to that? Yes or no? And then if you get nowhere, if somebody comes back trying to justify what's going on, you keep being repeating, I would like, can you agree to that, yes or no? I would like, can you agree to that, yes or no? I'll give you an example. When you come in late for work, everybody else is answering your phone, and that's taking away from our own work. I would like you to be here at the time that you're supposed to be here when we open up, so you can handle your own issues and not put stress on everyone else. And if the other person comes up and, well, there's a lot of traffic, yes, I understand there's traffic. I would like you to be here at certain so that you can answer your own phone calls. Yes, but I had this other problem, and there was this accident, and there was rain, and there was the babysitter didn't show up. Yes, I understand that life happens. I would like you to be here at such and such. Can you agree to that, yes or no? If you continue to come in later than the time I've asked, I'm going to have to let you go. Do you understand? So you spell out the natural consequences. There's no rancor, no anger. You're treating somebody as an adult, and they can do what they decide to do. And if they're unable to do what you've asked, they know the natural consequences. It's straightforward. Okay, now, gratitude helps tremendously in dealing with stress. So for today, I have. So as I mentioned, out in rural places, trees come down, power lines go down, and no lights, no heat, no whatever. So I can focus on what I have still to enjoy that day. And I have a roof over my head. I have clothes that I can put on. I have more blankets I can put on, or a comforter. And I have food in the house that I can still eat and prepare. So I look for what I still have that I can enjoy or appreciate. If I've had a rough day and I go in to take a hot shower, while I'm in there, I say, I'm so happy and grateful for running water or hot water, because a hot shower is truly a blessing. It's really something special that we have, and a lot of people don't. So what is it that I do have that I'm grateful for? And that's people, as well as a lot of basics and eyesight and being able to walk and talk. And 80 years old, I still have brown hair. So what am I so grateful for? Now, also, you can have certain beliefs and core values that help you. So, for example, I was dealing about a year ago with a situation that had me in continuous fear because I was dealing with dangerous people on my property. And the man had guns, and he would shoot them off once in a while. And he did damage, and he threatened me and workmen, and we had to call the sheriff here twice. So there were legitimate fears. But I also have a belief that I've had multiple lifetimes. I remember quite a few. I can't prove them, but I believe they're past lives. And so if I've had past lives, that means when I die, my consciousness is still around, and I'll just be back. And maybe some of you remember that inflatable doll that you punch it and it swings back, and you punch it and swings back. And it's sort of like that if you knock me down, I'll just be back again in a different body, but I'll still be going. So one of the things I'll say to myself is, on some level, I'm always okay. On some level, I'm always okay, that my consciousness is still there. And a lot of near-death experiences have said that they are convinced that life is eternal, that their consciousness still continues. Now, there is a hymn, and I'm not preaching Christianity to anybody, but there's a hymn that goes, that has the lyrics, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because the psychological message, not whether you believe in Christ or not, that every one of us needs some rock core beliefs that stabilize us. We need something to know that regardless of what happens, we're going to be okay. That we're connected to something more, or it can be a community of people that love us. Or a feeling of that what our values, what gives our life meaning. What if you think about Viktor Frankl and what he experienced in the camps, and people giving their last piece of bread to somebody else, their core values sustained them in times of tremendous hardship. And so here's where I use this. In my marriage, my husband said to me one day he wasn't sure if he wanted to be married anymore. And I was devastated. I didn't see it coming. And I was aware we had problems, but I always thought we could fix them. In his case, he was interested in other pastures. And so when he said this, I realized that for me to go through this, I had to know that whether he stayed or whether he went, I was going to be okay. And so these lyrics meant something to me, that I knew I was going to be okay. Not because of a Christian belief, because there was something there was still a rock of something within me, some inner strength that I could count on to be there to carry me through any problem. So I went home and he met me in the door and he said, well, maybe I'll stay. And I paused. I didn't say a word to him. I just put my head down. There's a solid rock of sand all the ground is sinking sand. Okay, honey. And he looked at me very strange, like, you mean you're not, giving me a big hug or something like that? And then the next day or day after, he'd go back to, well, I'm not so sure I'm going to stay. I think I'm going to leave. I says, look, solid rock is down, all the ground is sinking sand. Okay, honey. That I was neutral about whatever he was going to do, that I knew it was going to be okay. And it turned out that he did leave. It was a great thing. I am grateful. In fact, here's another point. Many times we think something is the worst thing that could happen, and it turns out to be a blessing. So why not look for the blessing? Why not make a determination you're going to find a blessing or make it a blessing? Nelson was and I had a mutual friend, Tony. And Nelson was brought in by his boss on a Friday and said, Nelson, take the whole department out to lunch and give them the news that since we've been bought out by the Japanese company, they are closing down this department and everybody's being let go. And he said, he was told, when you come back, we're going to just ask you to take your belongings out and we'll give you a severance check. And I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. So Nelson does what he's told, and he takes everybody out and gives them the news. So on Friday, everybody is really upset and worried. What are we going to do? How are we going to pay our bills? That was Friday. The following Tuesday was 9/11. Everybody not fired on Friday was dead on Tuesday. What you think is the worst thing can save your life. Now, I have a saying, my affirmation is as follows. I am that I am, a powerful spiritual being endowed with dignity, direction, and purpose. I have something of value to offer. So if I'm nervous about giving a presentation, as I'm walking, I will be talking to myself. I am that I am, a powerful spiritual being endowed with dignity, direction, and purpose. I have something of value to offer. And that allows me to get up and just offer what it is I have. Now, I personally, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, why did all this nonsense with the computer and getting online do today? And what it forced me to do is just talk off the cuff without fancy slides, without all the notes, so I can just read it from the script and just talk to you. So was that why it happened? I don't know. But that's what happened, what came out of it. I could just talk to you from pulling things from a whole many different sources that are relevant to what we're doing today. Now, something else that can help when you have a problem or issue that's pulling you off center is to inventory your strengths, your past achievements, other things you've overcome. Pets help, grounding helps. Now, here's something important. What's your why? What reason do you have to go on to survive, to overcome? I was talking to somebody recently who had such a challenge. I forget what the challenge was at the moment, but she felt she didn't have two children to support. She was going to kill herself, but she did have two children. And so she had to pull it together and find the strength within herself to go on. So what is our why? And if you get into a really tough problem that drains you of energy, like I did with my neighbors, my tenants, I should say, they were living on my farm, having to have a reason of knowing what your why is. And I'm really clear why I'm here, to help people heal on mental and emotional issues. That's my purpose. That I was kind of had that insight at 4 years old, but always looking for it. Now, unfortunately, in my case, when you say to the universe at a young age that what I wanted above all was to be wise like my grandmothers, I didn't know what I was asking for, because the road to wisdom is experience. And unfortunately, a lot of it's painful or bad experience that you have to figure out. Now, here's some other strategies you can use besides finding your why. And as I said, Viktor Frankl knew that the people who did survive had a reason to survive that camp. They had to get through it. While I'm on that topic, it's statistically verified that men are most in danger of dying within 6 months of retirement because they've lost their purpose, they've lost their validation, they've lost their identity. You're just sitting home and puttering in the garden isn't enough. You need to have a reason. There is a local man who's since passed, who said that that everyone has a life urge and a death urge. The death urge, well, the life urge is when you're enthusiastic and you're going about and making a life for yourself. The death urge comes up when you are tired, when you're frustrated, when life, you have grief, you have a lot of pain that you've suffered, and it becomes the balance of the scale, when it becomes more depression and more grief and more sadness and lack of meaning or purpose, when you that becomes stronger, then the body follows in illness and then death. And so to live long, you have to have a purpose. So I tell the universe, okay, I can't go before 90. One grandmother was 90, the other 91 have to live at least their age. And I have a mission that I have to complete. And so if you want to be healthy, find that mission, find that purpose, and align yourself with it and work on it. So, and be willing to show up. So what else can I tell you? You look for patterns when things happen. And when something happens 3 times, there's a pattern, and it's an indication you really have to deal with it. And so someone upsetting you is making you aware of what you need to do. So they're helping you in some way. I'll give you a quick story. I had a colleague, hypnosis colleague, and we were friends, professional friends. We roomed together at a conference, and she told me that she had just written a smoking book, and she had already had my smoking book, Stop Smoking, should I say. And so I was excited for her, and I wanted to see it. And since I couldn't leave my booth when people were around, and she couldn't either, when there was a break in the crowd, I walked over to her table, and she wasn't there. So I was looking for her book, and I found it, and I'm opening it up, and I'm reading it through, and I said, "Gee, that's familiar. Gee, that's familiar. Where have I seen that? This is my book." And I found 8 solid pages, verbatim, no affirmation, no quotes, nothing, just presented as her own. And I got very angry. And among the things I did is I went into meditation and I said, "How did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me?" I thought we were friends. The message I got was this: that in the pre-birth stage, she and I made an agreement. She came to me and asked me to help her. We were friends in the in-between. She wanted my help. She wanted to learn integrity. And if she didn't learn it before she got to me, then I would hold her to account. And I agreed. But there was something in it for me. What is it for me? I needed to learn to hold somebody to account. I needed to, instead of letting things slide, if somebody hurts me, I let it go. Somebody hurts me, I let it go. I needed to hold someone responsible. And so when I realized that I had agreed to hold her responsible, then I just went ahead and did what I had to do. And I sent evidence to all the hypnosis organizations where both of us had been presenters. And my lawyer sent her a letter to cease and desist. So I don't know if she has learned and grown, but at least I did my part. And I didn't have to be angry anymore. I just had, I didn't like it, but I didn't have to be angry. Now, one thing that, well, I don't know, are we getting too long or, okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go to, I wish I had these slides to make it low, easy. There are some core things that really are the gist of all of this. One is to know your core values. What are your core values? What's the rock you stand on? And this guides your decisions, the focus of your energy, your actions, and your non-actions. Another is know what is yours to do, that your problem may become your life's work. And what you learn as a response to dealing with your problems is your gift to the world. Pick your battles. Where do you want to focus your energy? Connect and stay connected to the source of your strength, creativity, ideas, inspiration, innovation to deal with and overcome problems. That's a direct connection to what we call consciousness, God, spirit, source. Connect to that spiritual essence that created you. And connect to others you care about. Join forces in community to meet whatever challenges you have. That is the core of everything I really wanted to say today. And we can take questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know there's a question already just about what was the affirmation, the statement, the part of me that knows.
There's a part of me that knows, and then you fill in this, you finish the sentence. There's a part of me that knows the natural consequences of the decision I'm considering making. And that part is guiding me to make the best decision, the wisest decision for my highest good. No, so you make up the sentence, but it starts with there's a part of me that knows, and then you add, and that part is, and then you finish the sentence.
I think that's so important.
Yeah.
That's so important to kind of to bring that to awareness.
Yeah.
I used to have a spiritual counselor when he was asking me very deep questions and my mind would just kind of go blank and I'd say, I don't know. He would say, if you did know, what would the answer be? Right? That kind of like you shift the whole thing. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I have one question about the we're dealing with a lot right now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person who's not feeling it, whether they're aware of it or not. And I loved what you talked about, the subconscious, so much of this is subconscious as well. But just because we have a big astrological event coming in within the next 48 hours, how are you kind of dancing with those energies? How are you planning on riding that wave? What are you feeling is the best course of action to kind of deal with the eclipse?
One of which is, okay, a couple of years ago, I tried to set up a group called Dowsing for Positive Change, where we would be taking issues of global or regional events and focusing on shifting it, things, not saying precisely how things would, but what it would look like. For example, happy children, safe, people talking together in respectful dialogue to find common answers. I mean, so so I'm planning on creating a program to do that on a regular basis. Another thing I feel that I'm going to be doing is that if people are going to be able to take action to create a better world, they have to, as I said, address their own inner issues, one of which is feeling like a victim. If you feel like a victim, if you take any action at all, it's going to be in a negative manner. burning things, throwing things, yelling, screaming, instead of creating a better option. You want people to, so helping a large group of people start to heal their feeling of victimization, powerlessness, hopelessness, fear. To heal any resonance they have within themselves of control over other people. Sending healing to people who have suffered. So if I am upset because I'm reading about child abuse, I'm going to send healing energy to all that have suffered from being sexually abused. I'm going to ask the universe to turn it into a blessing, that there's such an outcry that it has to stop. I'm going to empower people, just like the parents of that boy who was murdered, to help other people that have been victimized. So, as I said, if everything is consciousness and all my thoughts and emotions are part of consciousness and affect the whole, and as I know from Lynn McTaggart's Power of Eight groups, that the moment you have, well, the saying in Christianity is where two or three are gathered together, there I am in the midst of them. In Lynn McTaggart found that when people were praying or meditating to help somebody else, they themselves were blessed, and there was a multiplication effect. It's more than one and one. Thomas Campbell also talks about this. The power of group consciousness and Stephen Schwartz, the power of group consciousness can change reality. It can affect health. It can affect politics. Thomas Campbell also said it's no good focusing on just changing the politician, because the conditions, the consciousness that brought you one bad candidate is just going to give you another one. You get rid of one dictator and another dictator comes in. And so you have to work on changing consciousness. That's not just all you do, but because your actions come out of consciousness. So by working on healing yourself, you make it easier, as Thomas Campbell says, to help everybody else. And one of the things that I teach is how to duplicate benefits. If you are praying or meditating for yourself and doing any healing work, you say, there's a part of me that knows who else can benefit from the problems I'm having today, and from the healing work. Let's start again. There's a part of me that knows who else can benefit from the healing work I've done today. And that the high self of those others, or my high self, is reaching out to the high self of those others to duplicate whatever is appropriate for them in their highest good. And that has a multiplication effect.
I love that so much. I think you're really right that the power of that is much more than just it's multiplied, right?
Yes.
Barbara Hubbard used to talk about people who are grounded in that way and sending out that positive energy. They talked about them as islands of coherence within a chaotic environment, right? Really kind of creating that loving space. Nancy and Mary Claire have their hands up, so I'm going to ask if they want to go ahead. And Nancy, if you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I accidentally raised it.
Okay. It must be easy to do. I think a lot of people do that. Okay. So let me go to Mary Claire and see if Mary Claire, if you have a question, you can unmute as well.
Thank you so much. Oh, you can't see me. I don't know why. Greetings from the Adriatic, and it's evening here. May I say thank you so much. And Roxanne, I entirely concur, and I have data to show. I allow us to, at this moment, expand our concept of all those points that were just made in the last 5 or 10 minutes. At the beginning too. Everything is consciousness. When 3 or more or 2 or more are gathered, right? And the idea behind that is love. Judy, you mentioned there's an astrological event. So I have been shown and have a lot of data to back it up that what you all just said there, we expand it out into our connections with nature or even thought forms within the culture. So for instance, there are 24,000 plus named asteroids spinning around our solar system, and one is named Pax, and others La Paz, and others Ra Shalom, etc. And so if you put them, if you are given a moment in time space and you create a sacred geometric, let me say it, symmetrical, very intricate 0-point engine that doesn't ever exit, you can shift events from that are moving towards catastrophe. Just one person with the cosmos pinging in and all these other things, you can shift it. So your dowsing that you're doing, I would say, start to invite in those trees, all those things you've mentioned, and you will see it doesn't, you don't have to just use people. Like you said, everything is consciousness.
Mhm.
It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary.
It's a good point. You can appeal to the spirit of air and fire and water and as well as individual nature spirits. Thank you for that.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. I had the Ahuna Moans on series dial in exactly at midnight to come in at New Year's to say, yes, we did work on this with your planet. Intercosmically, it's really broad. Thanks for letting me blah, blah, blah. It's broad.
Thank you so much. It's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought it up because we were on another call this morning. We were talking about this. I've been talking. One of my passions is this idea that humanity really needs to learn some humility and to learn to take our place within the great web of life that is not just humans, right? And to communicate with non-human intelligence, including nature spirits and including our galactic brothers and sisters. And I think that's the only way forward is for us to kind of grow up a bit and learn that we're not the center, that we're not the only ones, and to be in partnership and in co-creative synergy with intelligences that are not human.
Why don't we do an exercise?
Okay.
Okay. So if just take a all right. So if you are willing to just do a short meditation, let's just close your eyes, take a slow deep breath in and let it go. And take a slow another deep breath in and let it go. And as you take your next deep breath, I want you to hold it. And when you can't hold it anymore, just allow your whole body to relax. Allow your body to be supported by whatever you're sitting on. And just have the intention of gathering together all of us on the call and symbolically just open your hands, palms up, as if you're holding hands with one another. Just joined on an etheric level with all those that are on this Zoom call and any others that watch the replay. Coming together to hold the intention of creating healing, harmony, balance, and love on this planet, where people live together respectfully, whether their opinions are the same, if they have differences of opinion, that is fine. There is respectful dialogue. Because there is a deep awareness that whatever is the fate of the planet is our own fate. That we share common interests for safety, for clean air and plenty of nourishing food, for health, for loving relationships, for the well-being of our children and grandchildren and generations to come. That we share a planet with so many amazing creatures that have a right to be here, to be respected. And every creature has purpose. Every creature, every person has value. And I'm going to ask the beneficial forces of the universe to join us in holding the intention for healing of a planet, healing whatever needs to heal, healing the hatred, healing the callousness, the cruelty, the inhumanity, to healing the pain, the suffering, the trauma, and to join together to resolve our problems together. Brown, white, yellow, red, all coming together. Because we rise or fall together. We live or die on this planet together. And so it is our deep realization that we are on this planet together. Together, we must heal and resolve all the problems for the highest good. And I want you just now to turn your hands forward and imagine the earth in the middle. And just send that healing energy to wherever it needs to go on the planet. And just see the behind us are mighty, powerful energies coming through us that we're directing onto the planet to go wherever it needs to go to heal the suffering, the tragedy, the pain, the grief, the hunger, the sadness, the fear, the insecurity, for every living creature on the planet and the planet itself. I send this healing energy with love to go where it needs to go. It is offered, not forced. It is given the highest good of all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Amen. You can just blow your hands off. Just send that prayer off.
Thank you for that. I really think that this is very powerful. You know, this just joining together virtually and physically. Donnelly would like you to please restate the name of your book that has many of the helpful statements in this.
Yeah, there's a part of me that knows, and the process is part of accessing more, tapping into the wisdom within. And as I mentioned before, if you want the 6-page handout or the slide pictures, I'll happily send it. If you send me an email, Roxanne at roxannelouise.com, and Roxanne has 2 N's and an E. And I will also include the link to where the books are, and you can look them up. There's quite a few. And also my blog is Unlimited Potential Healing Center, and it has over 170 articles on it. A lot of them are on stress.
That's great. I think Donna Lee had put that in the chat. If you want to scroll back, if you're on the call, it's Unlimited Healing. What did you say?
Unlimited Potential Healing Center.com. How do I put it in the chat?
Okay. And I'm gonna Mary Claire still has her hand up, so I'm gonna ask. This will be the last question, and then we'll end. Mary Claire, you can unmute yourself. Did I get that right?
Excuse me, I didn't have a question, and I lowered my hand, so I don't know why.
You know, it's part of
sorry about that.
Part of the craziness that's happening right now. So yes, so thank you for that. And yes, you put that in the link. And Donnelly says if you sign up for her newsletter, you will get notification of her workshops. Thank you, Donnelly. I am going to send out in the FMBR newsletter, I'll send out the links where to get the handout for this talk. Also, she has 2 workshops coming up, one in April and one in May. And I will send all of that out in the next newsletter in the next day, hopefully within the next 24 hours. So watch for that. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for being in this flow with us. And how wonderful, Roxanne, to say, you know, that this is just to be in that space where it's like, okay, well, this is what happened, right? And here's the positive that came out of it. I think just to be able to talk like this has been really wonderful. So thank you all. Eclipse blessings to everyone. And I hope, well, we'll see you again soon. So have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks again.